first guest, Shawn Alexander Allen, who will be showcasing Treachery in Beatdown City. Roll the trailer.
Yeah. They call me when ninja people attack the street. My president's black and y'all gon' give him back to me. I spend half the week training and doing tournaments. I spar with gangbangers with Yankee shurikens. It's too late now if you out of chances, bro. Your hands is low, gotta hail an ambulance to go. This ain't no slap boxing, we don't pretend to scuffle. I make the whole rule book and still will bend a couple. I fight like big companies over business struggles, or anime heroes do when they friends in trouble. It ain't gotta be noble, I fight for stupid reasons. I find a reason to fight against any human breathing. If I'm on your block, you need to tell a doctor. I'm hella big and I'm about to punch a helicopter. I'm super woke so my eyes open, don't provoke when I'm side scrolling. Street sweeper, peacekeeper, 2 cellulars, 3 beepers. You dignified with a simple mind, and that cash got you all hypnotized. Laptop and on end design so they don't watch what they gentrify. Yeah, Beatdown City, we gon' whoop your ass. Beatdown City, we gon' whoop your ass. Beatdown City, we gon' whoop your ass. Beatdown City, we gon' whoop your ass.
Yo, the Beatdown City, that song is slapping, the beat is banging, the lyrics are super dope. It's hilarious. We got Shawn on the line, and we're gonna actually play. Alfonso's gonna be driving for most of the time, and we're gonna play through the game. What is up, Shawn? How is it going?
What's up, man? How you doing?
Yeah, dude. Like, we were talking about this before, like, everything is on point culturally with the game, obviously, but, like, how did you get started? Let's go a little bit back into your history.
I mean, it's it's funny. I remember going, like, I wanted to do comics as a kid, actually, and like, I really loved comics. I had like How to Draw Marvel Comics, or How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way, and made a ton of comics, and never really actually owned video games, but you could, get comics. And I don't know, something kind of flipped in me. I even made a comic that was set in a fictional video game world where all the characters were drawn, like, I drew everybody in like jagged, like, pixel art style, but by hand with pen and marker. And then, one day it got into my head because I kept getting discouraged for doing all the things I wanted to do, like writing, music, all these various things that were just kept away from me. And then one day I was like, I'm gonna make video games. And I didn't let a single person discourage me from that, no matter what. It was like the last thing that I was like, no, we're doing this. And I was actually talking about recently that I was like a moderator on IGN's message boards around 2000 to 2007.
Wow, I did not know that. That's dope.
Yeah. I also sort of used to troll on those boards too, simultaneously, which I don't know how that worked. And I went to my first E3. I was just saying I went to my first E3 when I was in 2003, actually.
Wow. Were you working at a GameStop or something when you went to E3 for the first time?
Yeah, because like you used to be able to go if you were an EB Games employee or GameStop employee. I was EB Games. Like, I used to hang out at my EB Games, wanting to get a job there in 2000, and they just didn't. It was hard to get a job at these stores, especially if you were in school like I was. And then I was just talking about this with my wife. I actually got my EB Games job the day that Spice City came out.
Oh, wow. That's great.
And and also got another job the day that same week, which meant now I'm doing double work while going to school full time. And I was just like, I've been hurting. I hadn't had a steady job in years. I'd been trying to get it, but no one wanted to hire a student. and my friend, who was the assistant manager of the store, he got promoted to manager. The manager got moved to another store, and the manager was actually this like racist ass Italian dude who just didn't want to hire any more black people. So when he left,
so how did you get into your first gig? Did you go to school for game design or art and design?
I went to school for graphic design, and then kind of hated my department, and so I went to so then I switched to computer art, which was like I was really into like 3D and stuff like that, and then that was so time intensive, especially since I had a full-time job, that I ended up doing more 2D animation, and did 2D animation mixed with 3D for my thesis. And then after I graduated, a few months afterwards, I applied to a bunch of jobs that were all drying up, and eventually Rockstar posted a game capture position, which I had never known existed, to make trailers.
What is game capture? What do you do when you're game capturing?
It's, for that job, it's complicated because, like, you know, a 3D game, you know, when you see trailers, right? Mm-hmm. And you see like someone like jump off a roof with an explosion happening behind them. That could be fully animated, like a company like Blur, and those trailers cost like $1 million a pop, or at least, to make. Or you could have a fully gameplay trailer where there's a person playing the game, running the person off and jumping off the thing, and then there's another person filming it as it goes down. So that's kind of a combination of those two. And as I did it more and more, I started doing whole trailers by myself.
Oh, wow.
Where I'd be holding two controllers. I'd like hold forward, you'd pause the game, hold forward, play the game at like 25% speed, and then put a rubber band around the controller to make the person keep running forward, and then like press a button like this and take the camera and like just like move the camera like that as the person's falling off the roof or something.
Yeah, that's super interesting. So when you so you worked at Rockstar for a little bit, and then while you were at Rockstar, is that when you started Treachery?
In a sense, it was an idea. Because when I was at Rockstar, I saw stuff like Super Meat Boy come out, and I was just like, oh, like indie games are a thing. And it's funny because I had a friend who was really into Cave Story, and I didn't get into Cave Story then, but when I saw Super Meat Boy on Xbox Live, I was like, oh, like, and Braid, and I was like, oh, these games can come out and you can do stuff. So I kind of started talking to like my HR, and I was like, what if I wanted to make like a mobile game? And he could actually never answer my question. So I just kind of started coming up with an idea of story and a world and character designs that I didn't know were going to go anywhere. And then in 2012, the same year that like I kind of wanted to work on the game more, and there was a bit of a thing that happened, and there was a split with Rockstar, and I went full-time to work on the game for a bit.
Yeah, I remember playing the game, you know, early on because we met the first time at EVO 2012, or was it 2013 when we met, when we were working on Super Combo Man, and I just saw the game, and I fell in love with it just because it's a mashup of, you know, a brawler, and it has these RPG elements. Can you talk about like your influences for making this game?
Yeah, like I kind of always tell people, part of that indie scene thing going on was like Castle Crashers was a big game, but then we also saw like the rebirth. We saw Double Dragon, the arcade game, which I had never played before. I'd only played the Nintendo version, and Turtles, the arcade game, which I'd also never played before. I'd only played the Nintendo version. But like those games were coming back, and I was not a fan of Castle Crashers. I didn't like how Castle Crashers was very character action focused. Like it was like doing all of the like juggling and everything from like a Devil May Cry and you know, like they had like spells you could cast to launch people in the air and knock them in the air. And I like down and dirty punching people in the face in the streets, right? Like so, like and also like I kind of had seen how like like urban games, like games set in a city, just kind of disappeared from the landscape, and so I was like, I want to make the best beat 'em up ever.
that's
and we started working in Game Maker. Like I actually was the first person to lay down code in the game in Game Maker. Like I had Brad in the game and I made him move up, down, and left and right. And the programmer Nico hadn't 100% been taking it seriously. Like we had been talking about working on the game, but then it was like, oh, if I don't start working on it, Sean's going to leave me behind. So then we started like kind of like weekly working on it, and then like we hit a point where we were not liking what was going on, and I was kind of freaking out, and I was and I literally had a shower moment where I went and took a shower that night. I was very sad, and I was like, let's make it turn-based. Like I was like, because I like had this confluence of Mario RPG. I'm like, I like RPGs. I like Mario RPG. I like Fallout Spats. I like Hybrid Heaven, which only a small handful of people know about, and which is basically like a fighting game RPG. They're very different than this. And so then that's when we went to work and started figuring that out. And it was a lot of work, but it was so much more interesting than what we were trying to do that I was just like, yeah, let's do that. And we got our first build that was like a playable that people could see like the real ideas, and it was I think it was like Brad or Lisa versus 3 Johns, and it was like the idea of whether or not you could make this game feel like a good fighting game. And that was when we were like, oh yeah, we got this, so let's keep going.
So what were some of the challenges that you had as an indie developer, as a black indie developer, as you were going through the process? Was it like, was the development 5 years, or like what was the development period, and what were some of the challenges you had as a black developer?
I mean, 2012 is when I left Rockstar, and this game came out last year.
Yeah.
So that's 8 years plus R&D essentially. I'd say it was kind of like a decade in the making. But I mean, like I didn't know how to make, like, it's weird. Like I worked at Rockstar. I had worked on, like, I'd been able to basically see and play and touch games that were nowhere near, like, that were very early. Like I I got to like touch Grand Theft Auto 5, like when where if you walked 2 steps in any direction, you'd fall off the face of the map. Like, so I got to see games like at a very early state, but I didn't know like what it was like to make a game when there was literally nothing on screen, right? So, and my programmer also, we were both very new to it, and I didn't have good project management skills. I thought I did. I don't know, like I thought I'd worked in QA for a bit. I thought I knew it, didn't. So it was like a lot of like having to learn how to be a developer was a major thing. Also, like finding money for this idea that I'm working on was very difficult. Like I thankfully, was a part of the PlayStation Mobile bit, which was like, Shane Benthausen like basically helped me work on this, because I wouldn't have been able to work on it without some money. So that's key thing. But like PlayStation Mobile development was fraught with technical issues just because the SDK was terrible. Basically any PlayStation Mobile dev would tell you that. And just I've pitched to 1 million people to try to help get funding, and I had to go back to full-time work, and just really had to like, I don't know, like anything I had, I poured right back into this game. And there's been some benefits, like the industry came out with the Kickstarter and backed the game, and that was amazing.
And so
but
you
at
had
the same time, we asked for way too little money.
Yeah, no, I mean, I feel that. And so you basically had to learn how to become more of a producer. You had to get your entrepreneurship up and like that type of thing. How did you like maneuver through these things? Did you have mentors or folks to help you out through because it's a ridiculous process if you don't have folks to work with, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like with Kickstarter, I really say that the industry is why this game. It's like, I kind of started going to my first E3 was 2003, and then I didn't go back until I was at Rockstar. And when I was at Rockstar, I basically was able to. I went to E3, and I had a little bit more, confidence, and I got to talk to people, but I think I was real easy to deal with, and I made a lot of friends, and was very nice to a lot of people very nice back, and that led to when I wanted to go do my own thing. I remember this guy, Seth Skeisel, who used to be the video games writer at New York Times. I met him at a Halo party that I wouldn't have been able to get into without being a Rockstar person, because it was a weird thing of handing in a Rockstar business card and them letting me in because of that. Like, it was strange, because those like Microsoft parties were very exclusive, and I had no invites to anything. And I was in there, and Seth was just talking to me, and I was like talking to him about how I wanted to go indie and do that, and he was just like, "Yeah, man, that sounds great." And Seth's also a black dude writing about games, so that was really cool to meet him. And then we were at this party, and he introduced me to like Phil Harrison and like all these other people in the games industry that were just there because it was a very exclusive party. Wow. And he was just like, "Yo, this is Shawn, former Rockstar. Like, he's at Rockstar right now. Yeah. He wants to go be an indie, blah, blah, blah." And those guys all just being like, "Oh, that sounds cool. Like, yeah, you should totally do that." And, just having that bit of like encouragement, even if they barely know who I am, and someone just bigging me up already in front of people was like pretty nice to be like, "Oh yeah, I should do that." Also, I was at a party where I met a bunch of like my heroes. Like, I met like Nathan Vella who was one of the founders of CatBE, and my friend Barut, who was he was like the lead engineer on Skulls of the Shogun before it had a name, like, early indie title.
Yeah.
Met Suda51 and a bunch of people at this party. And so I got to see what being an indie developer was like also. So it was like, and then, so those were people I could also email and ask for help and advice, and it just kept growing from there. And like just having people to talk to, like when I was like just failing or feeling like a failure, and just saying like, "I feel like a failure, like what's up?" And they're like, "Nah, man, don't worry about it." Like, when you got to push your game back 3 or 4 times,
yeah,
and having people say, "You got to do what's best for you, Shawn," like that was always super helpful.
It feels like very serendipitous in that way. And you're also one of the co-founders of Game Devs of Color Expo. Like, can you talk about how that kind of came about while you're developing the game?
Yeah, so I am not a co-founder, I'm a co-organizer.
Oh, okay.
I'd say I sort of helped found it in the sense that one day I just woke up in 2012. That was part of my 2012 awakening, was like, I just had this flip in my brain where I was like, I always say it was because I started listening to Dead Prez and Saul Williams, and their music's very revolutionary. And I started looking around and being like, there's no black people in the games industry. And so then like I started like really, and then I wrote a big talk about it for IndieCade of 2013, which had me diving into like, the history of hip hop and tech, and just getting into all these stats and looking at all this stuff. And that got me, I was like this like hyper radicalized person who was just like really fighting for this. And so I started just trying to find all the black folks that were in the games industry and go talk to them and figure out like what we could do to go forward. And I found Kat on Twitter because she was friends with a mutual friend, and then she was teaching Kat Small. She is the founder with Chris Algu. They have their company Brooklyn Gamery. And I found Kat, and I went to a UX talk she was giving just so I could meet her in person. And this is what I do, is I find black folks in the industry and I start talking to them about like, how can we make the industry better? How, just whispering like, hey, there's no black folks, blah, blah. And based on those conversations, a lot of times people like will just become friends and tied together forever. Like that's what happened with me and you at Evo, right? We just started talking about, there's no black people here. So, and then Kat just the talking from there, because Kat is an amazing organizer. She helped found Code Liberation, which was a group for teaching women how to code. And so she's just like this amazing person for organization. And so she worked with Chris to found Game Devs of Color Expo as like this, just kind of this idea of like, is there a market for this? And it was at Microsoft in Times Square. They gave up some free space for a lot of game events, and it was pretty big. It was great. And then she reached out to me and some other folks the next year and said, I want to do more. I need help. And I had gone to the Schomburg Center for the Black Comic Book Festival and a bunch of other events, and saw how dope this like spot in Harlem was, like a very pro-black space. And I said, we need to move the event there. So I did stuff for the event. Like I made some big moves for it, because I always say I'm kind of like the, like Malcolm X or Stokely Carmichael type of the games industry, and that like, I'm just like, let's change everything right now as much as possible.
Yeah.
So
it's super dope what you like, what has come up with the Game Devs of Color Expo. Can you tell us about like, where you're going with New Challenger? And you have Treachery and Beatdown City. It has like a diverse cast. You're an activist. You're doing all this cool stuff. What's next for New Challenger?
I mean, the next big thing is we're supporting this game right now. That's like the only real thing I could talk about. I got other things in the works, but until things get
NDA
more situation. Until things just get more, I always talk about how I come from like I grew up in poverty. So for me, until something is happening, it's not happening in a lot of ways. I can't really 100% believe it. It's like you can't believe there's money coming until it's in your pocket.
Yeah. So what's next for Treachery? Do you have an update coming or anything?
Yeah, we're going to have there's this big story. Well, right now we have a localization patch that we're actually going to be putting into cert very soon that has a bunch of languages to get it out to a more global scale. It's going to come out in Europe and Australia, and we're also working with a Japanese publisher for that. And then we have this massive patch, which is going to be like the size of the game as it is right now for story-wise, and more enemies and content and stuff. And it's probably not the wisest thing to do, but it's going to be like free for everybody who has the game.
That's dope. So where can we find the game and follow you?
Yeah, you can find the game. There's Beatdown_City on Twitter. A New Challenger with a U, NU Challenger on Twitter, and there's just beatdowncity.com.
Yo, I appreciate you. I mean, we stay up late nights just talking about all this stuff. Yeah. Like, all your activism, like, definitely rubbed off on me. Like, you're a cohort in my eyes. Man, I love you, everything you do. Thank you for jumping on the show. We appreciate it.
Love the game, brother. I play it all the time at home, so it's
dope. It's good to see you again, Alfonso.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Shawn.
Alfonso knows a little bit about what the future is.
Yeah, he does. All right.
It's on the DL.
Thanks, Shawn.
All right.
Appreciate it.